Now we will learn more about data manipulation using the dplyr package in order to transform our data. And as I said, data manipulation is not an easy thing. There's a lot of options we can learn, and that's why I make several more or less short videos. It will start with understanding the basic functions like select and filter, using pipe again and rename. Then we learn how to compute new variables, how to recode items, how to compute scales, and then put it all together where we look at more advanced data processing, how to deal with cross-sectional data sets or longitudinal data sets. Okay, let's have a look at select, filter, pipe and rename. So I start here with a command rm, which means remove everything from the workspace. Sometimes I like to do that to clean up everything which I have done before. So let's activate the tidyverse package and then let's read in the new toy dataset. You can see the toy dataset has, so we have an ID variable, we have a gender variable, then we have 2 items for trait, 2 items for state, then a nonsense variable, and then grades, and then the name of students. So we will use that now for several of these videos. So this is a toy dataset which we'll use for several of these videos. So very often when we work with data, it is important to be able to subset a data set. This can be either we want to select certain kind of columns or we want to select some of the rows. So here the meaning of select is it's always about columns. So you can see here in function select, then it says which data frame do you use. So here first comes the data frame and then comes the variable I want to use. And then I save it in an object. Now there are different ways to do that. So either I can read out all the names. There are also other ways. As you can see, we can tell dplyr the column numbers. Or we can also, if you put the minus in front, it means all of them except the one with the minus in front of it. This is all possible. However, here I generally use the first version because sometimes the dataset gets changed. And if I use numbers, then sometimes the wrong columns get selected, and that would be a big problem. The second function we are looking at is the filter. And the filter is basically the same idea, but instead of talking about columns, we talk about rows. So we want to subset only a part of the data set. So here we can say, for example, I want to have only the part of the data set when the trait 02 is smaller than 3.9. So you can imagine you could use that for everything. You can say, oh, we have like a gender variable, male and female, but I only want to have male or I only want to have female. So this is where you can subset your data set. And here at the end I have a combination of different operators. So I can make the condition under which I want to select specific rows endlessly complicated. For example, here I say, okay, under the condition that trait 02 is smaller than 3.9, but I have another condition that the state also should be smaller or equal to 9. And then I can combine it with either logical operator AND or with the OR operator. So let's run this. And if you run both of them, you can see in the first condition where we have the AND, in the first condition where we have the AND operator, you can see we get only 3 rows. But if we use the OR statement, then we get 4 rows. But the take-home message here is we use the select function to select columns and we filter for specific rows using the filter function. So the next step is to use the pipe. The pipe is not totally new for us, but now this is an example where we can use both the select and the filter function in one single command. And I think that's the way how you should use it. It is okay to do it like individually, to first select and then filter, but I think you should get used to use the pipe all the time. So remember what that means. So here it begins by saying use the dataset df and save it in a new object, which I actually call now a different name. And then I want to do something else. Now you can see when you use the pipe, the syntax is slightly changing. So if you run syntax individually, like here on the top, we have to tell dplyr which dataset we're using at the beginning. So that's why you can basically outsource it to the beginning. And then here you don't have to do it anymore. You can directly put in the arguments without including the data frame. So that's very good. So it's a little shorter. We can say select and then just select the variables which I want. And then I want to do something else. For example, here, use the filter function and then do something with the filter function and run this. Then you can see this is the same thing like we did before. And I hope you start to see how useful it can be to connect different kind of functions with the pipe operator. The next question is, how do we rename a variable if you want to do that? And this is here, this second command. The function is called rename. So again, very simple. But the important thing is the order matters. It's on the left side is the new name, and then we equal the old name. And what I wanted to show you here is that now all these steps we have combined, and I think that's a much cleaner and better writing style than have like tons of individual function up to some level. I think that's great good. So the next question is, what do we do if this is our final data set which we want to keep, and how do we save this data set now? So here I show you at the end how to save a data set. So the function to save something is write.csv. So remember, we had to read in the dataset, we had read.csv, and now we want to write a dataset, so it's write.csv. Then we have to tell R which object we are using, and the first argument is the object we want to use, so this is here df2. And then the second argument, what is the name of this data file? So it's file, and then I give here a new name. But important is, of course, that we end it with .csv if we want to write out a CSV file. And this dataset will be saved in the folder where we also have saved this syntax file.